our final year of planning, final year. And what we're talking about in our final year of planning is, we've been talking about going into 2020 with a new plan. Now, how many of you have started thinking about or started working on your new plan for 2020? Just thinking about working on, looking at like, well, there's a couple things I could change, or there's some new results that I'd like within my life, or I'd like some things to come out differently than what they've come out in the past. I know that many people say at the beginning of the new year that they want to add some things to their life, and others are talking about the things that they want to see improve within their life. So as we talk about the additions and the improvements, I want to talk about final year plan. So the final year's plan. So when we talk about final year planning, I want to talk about planning as if this were your final year. So say to your neighbor, as if it were your final year.
As if it were your final year.
Yeah, so planning out and working on our plan as if it's only a one-year plan. So if we looked at, if 2020 was our last year on earth, how would we plan it out? If we only had 12 months to live here on earth and our work would be done at the end of 12 months, how would we plan our year out? Because we know that there are many people that have been lost in 2019. We've lost close people. We've lost people on all different levels. We lost people in our church. We've lost political figures. We've lost entertainers. We've lost people in the sports industry. In all facets of life, we've seen loss by way of death. So I believe that it's important for us when we're entering 2020 to enter 2020 as if, or to at least make a plan as if that's our final year here on earth. Now, let me ask you this just as an opening question. Do you think that planning this next year as if it were your final year, if that will affect the type of plans that you make?
Yes.
If you thought of it as if it were like this is my final year that I'm going to be here, would it be different than any other year that you made plans for? So, living a life in finality. We think that sometimes we can have the thought like, well, I'm doing all that I could do, or I'm doing all that I possibly could do. But if your life were on the line, or if time were on the line, how would you live your life? How would you look at your call that you're walking in with God? How would you look at the plans that you have? Because and I want you to deeply think about this, because sometimes if we look at it as if, well, I don't know how to think like that because I'm not in my final year. Think back like to high school. If you thought back to high school, you said you could relive your senior year again. How would it be? Now, I have a lot more experience than I did living my senior year, so I probably would live it totally different because my perspective is completely changed. So that's what I'm asking you to do today. I don't want you to think of as your final years, well, I'm living it now. Well, no, you're not living it now, because we're not doing everything that we could do within a day. If I knew that tomorrow were my last day, I would live it totally different than what I've lived it right now. Because they say, well, what would I do? I probably would reach out to people that I haven't reached out to in a while. That I probably would do, I would do, if I came to church, you would see that my messages would probably be, speaking them from a person that doesn't sound like they're going to be there very much longer. Think about that. Think of like when if you look at a person living their life, and sometimes I think of like in movies when someone dies and they get to come back and live their life again, and they get to see like, well, you know what, I looked at this as common, or I looked at this as something that was part of my everyday life, but actually what I was living was something that was really special or really unique, or you know, we don't look at what we're living as unique or special because we just figure that it's going to be there tomorrow. When you think that things are going to be there tomorrow, you live a lot differently than if you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. So I just want you to think of it in terms of that. So entering the new year with a new plan, the final year plan. So planning for your final year. So I want to talk about when we plan for our final year, we have to look at the darker side of things, and that's death. Now, I say darker because it's the end of one stage, or it's the end of one cycle. But tell me this, what are the good things about death? Tell me something good about death, or positive about death. You said what, brother?
You get to go home.
You get to go home. So that this is, you know, we're just travelers here, we're foreigners, this is not our actual home. So as our brother said, that if we're looking at this life, and what would be good about exiting this life is that we finally get to go to our home or our resting place. Anyone else? What's good about death? What's good about it? We'll get to see Jesus. So we'll get to see Jesus, who foundationally is the central figure of like what we believe, or came and lived as us next to God. So being able to see Jesus from a historic perspective, being able to see Jesus from the perspective of what he suffered, of what Jesus would look like now. I mean, I kind of look at like, well, what would Jesus look like in heaven versus what Jesus looked like on earth? Are the depictions we have of Jesus, are they accurate, or are we all going to be surprised at what we see by Jesus? So to be able to see Jesus. Yes, ma'am, you had your hand up?
Well, for those who don't know Jesus, it'll be a good time for that ultimate time to make that salvation, to really, like, if I knew I was gonna die. I do stress it to them already, but I would tell them, look, I'm going to a better place. Won't you want to do your sinner's prayer with me now to kind of know where you're going after you pass? Because I know where I'm going.
Right.
Come on, let's come to the house of the Lord. Come to His family. Come to His family.
Right.
I would kind of stress to them more that I know where I'm going, because I'm going to die. So I would like for you to come along with me, because I would like to see you at the time of your death. Meet me. I'll be waiting for you at the pearly gates or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I like what you said there, that like, and just think of how she entered, or before what she said, well now, so if I really knew that I were going to die tomorrow, I know where I'm going to go, but I would be more, I'd be more persistent, and it would be more urgent for me to tell people about how to get to where I'm going. You see what I'm saying? You see how she did that?
I do that already, but it'll be like more urgency, like.
Thank you. Right.
I'll be like going everywhere. Come on.
Right. Okay. So just let's bottle what she said there. She said that if she knew that she were dying, it would be at a different level. Everybody get what I'm saying there?
Yeah.
If you know that you're dying, people say, well, yeah, I'm living my best life now. No. If you think of it, the concept, like, I'm not going to be here tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, you would be doing because the thing is right now, we're doing everything in the course to where we think we have another day to do it.
Right.
Like, hey, well, Pastor, are you preaching today as if this is the last conversation that we're ever going to have with you? Well, now when I make that conscious thought, I'd have to say, well, no, because I'm going to see you guys again on Sunday. But here's the thing. So that's what I'm saying. that if, you know, and just like Sister Karen got. Well, now, if I knew that I was going to die tomorrow, okay, I get what you're saying. I would probably be going and being persistent. That people that I was not sure of, that they said the prayer, that they accepted Christ in their life, because, you know, if you look at like, well, maybe I'm the only one that loves my grandchild or loves my son or my daughter at this level. So I want to make sure before I go that they're going to make it to heaven.
I would not have got no sleep.
Okay, yeah, all right, so very good. Probably would get no sleep. You know, listen, what would the relevance of sleep be if we know that we're going to go, listen, that tomorrow we're going to be away from this realm of reality, we're going to be in a whole different realm, so we would not just say, well, you know what, yawning would have a different, like, why are you yawning? You only have a few more hours left to live, so good point there. So like if we had only a short time left to live, and if we were planning like that, how would things be? Like if this were my final message to you,
Yeah.
the subject would probably be different.
Yeah.
The urgency of what I was saying would probably be different. I think I would try to make it more to a point of, you know what, guys, if you didn't understand nothing else I gave you, this is what was really important. And I probably would go back and rectify a lot of things, like, all right, so you guys met me, I was pretty young, right? So there were some things that I said that, you know, I said it at that time, but it probably is not as important. So you could do this if you want to do this, but these were the really important things I wanted to express to you. And sorry for being this way, or sorry for being that way, or this is, you know, that I really didn't want to come across like this, you know, because it's my last time. Yes, ma'am?
As you were saying that, I would want to make peace too.
Yes, you would want to make peace.
What, like,
Yes, so there's some, you know, some people, I know that if I knew it were my last hours that were here, I probably would go and make peace with the few people that maybe they might not have understood, like that I forgave them, or that I didn't take it as serious as what it was. I think that it would be a lot easier to forgive someone if you knew that you weren't going to be here much longer, right? If you knew you weren't going to be here any longer and you've held this grudge against someone, it would be, you know, it's almost easier just to like, hey, you know what? I've held this grudge against you, but I'm not going to be here beyond today, so I just want to let you know I forgive you. Have a nice day. Have a nice life. Take on a new meaning. Yes?
it would be for them too, you know, because you don't want them remembering, and then they could be like, oh man, I didn't even get to say I was sorry to that person.
Yep.
You know, and it will be for them too, so they can be at peace themselves, you know.
Very deep. Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, now let's, and she brought up something completely different. And I didn't think about this, like how important would peace be to you in those final hours? Like, so Sister Karen, she's saying, like, I put a priority on peace. So I would go and make peace, and I like her, she said, not just for me, but for them.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't, you know, because I know sometimes I've had the experience where someone's died and I didn't have peace with them. And after they died, I felt like, wow, I probably should have just made peace with them. I probably shouldn't have taken that seriously. Or I probably shouldn't have been so stiff in this area. Or I probably shouldn't have, I would want them to remember me in a different light other than this situation that happened that could have been resolved. I think that's, because you know what, in my preparation, I didn't even think about that.
I've heard people say, oh, I wish he was here so I could just tell him that I was sorry, you know. I've heard people say that before.
Yeah.
Especially at funerals. Well,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that's very deep, because at funerals, you do, a lot of times people will, you know, their final words are words of like regret, or words of like, wow, I wish that, you know, we would have gotten to spend more time together. I wish we wouldn't have lost touch with one another. I've seen, there was a funeral I did a couple of weeks ago, and their family, they traveled all the way here from like, somewhere from, I think they were from Maine, and they drove all the way out here to put a cousin to rest, and they were like, yeah, you know what, he would always remember our family, and he would always come and visit, so we just wanted to, for this one last time, come back and just say our goodbyes, because we hadn't seen him in a couple years. So yeah, so sometimes I think that words at funerals and stuff they fall a little hollow because the person that could have been the recipient of those words are no longer, they can't hear them no more. So very good. Okay, so yeah, so death is the end of a cycle. So So think about this, the end of different cycles within your life. All of us at one point may not have had grandparents. If you had a grandparent within your life, raise your hand if you had a grandparent. You knew a grandparents, right? Most of us knew a grandparent. But there was a cycle that came to where that cycle was over. And you look at, like, I think that when I no longer had a grandparent, I was like, wow, every kid I knew had a grandparent. So I guess I'm not a kid no more, because kids all have grandparents. Like as you get to be adults, sometimes you don't get to have grandparents into adults. So it ends a cycle. So sometimes, if you had loving grandparents, nurturing grandparents that took care of you, when you lose a grandparent, that's the end of, wow, well, I may never be loved and supported in that way because my grandpa's not going to be here anymore. That's the end of a cycle. So the end of a cycle could be the end of a job, like if you retire from a job, right? It's the end of a cycle. I'll never go back in that place and have to punch the clock ever again because I am retired. I'm done, right? That's the end of a cycle. I never have to do that no more. I don't have to do that. When you retire and like when you get like a fixed income or you get like Social Security, whatever, you don't have to pay a lot of taxes. The older you get, sometimes the taxes become easier to do because you're not making as much. It's much simpler at that time. So now the years of itemizing and really scrutinizing and having headaches over what the taxes are going to be, there is no headache in that because that cycle is just over. It's over. Yes, ma'am.
I think that there's also like a renewing though in death because like you're talking about family and losing people in your life and like for my kids we don't maybe have the grandparents in their life,
right,
but we have an extended church family who's very much grandparent like in our life, and so I don't feel like that realm is missing. And even for like myself or like Brother Gilbert, like there's individuals that we just that's our elder, and we don't even look at it as any different. And I think as we evolve in those relationships, we gain more individuals, so you don't lose that person. Yeah. But then also like with the job, like moving on, like you don't have to punch in and necessarily answer to a boss, but now you can like renew yourself in that. You can stay busy, like Sister Joe, Sister Yvonne, stay busy in Christ. They're not clocking in and out from it, but it's still like on the move, Like, unfortunately, I work with a lot of geriatrics who just like their day doesn't really consist of much more than like checking in and out with the doctor. Like that's sad. I think that even when I don't work, like I got a lot of things to do. Like time is of the essence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So. I think there could be a lot of rebirth though, like renewing that can happen with the end of something.
Yeah, no, I think that is very true as well. That like when you end something, that there's like a space, and now that space, okay, I don't have to clock into a boss. Now I can put my energy in a different place. But I hear exactly what you're saying, and sometimes we don't have the organic family. But we've created like the nuclear family. So for instance, in church, like you say, like, man, we've got an extended family through church. And I feel the same way because like, a lot of our peers, they have grandkids. Or like, they're like, yeah, I got my grandkids this weekend, or I'm taking my grandkids somewhere. Well, we don't have grandkids, but through the church, we have grandkids. So like we could, if we're you know, if it's to give, if it's to like to be part of the child's life or whatever, I think that we can have it in different ways. And I see what you're saying, like that it can be extended in other areas, but even like that, one of the things I was, you know, and it's just like, we have online it's a Victory Assembly, that's our old church, a reunion page. And all of these old pictures keep coming up. And yesterday, there's a picture from, it had to have been 20 years, well, probably about 25 years ago, Sister Joe and Sister Yvonne. And there were people, and this guy by the name of, and I don't know if you guys, his name is Tim Moore. He's got all of these old pictures of all of us. His name was Tim Moore, and he went to Victory anyway. Well, anyway, he put those up, and I look at like, there was a picture of the Stoutbergs, there was, I mean, like all of these people, and like I woke up, you know, the other morning, and I saw like all these pictures on my phone, like, wow, that was, at that time, that church was like, it was everything to us. Like that we, you know, we were family. I mean, just like what we have here, like it was just in a different place. And I look at like the man, that ended, but now, you know, there's going to be like the Streets of Destiny one probably 20 years from now. And then like all of us, we looked all young and stuff. And then now we're going to see like, wow, well now we've gotten older. So yeah, so the cycles is like that. Sometimes you know, death is like to be able to be renewed, and that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing. It's like when something ends, you can build up something else. But ultimately, we're building things up to ultimately reach an end. So all right. So Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 and 2. I'm going to read this. You can follow it on the screen. There is a time for everything, a season for every activity under the heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot. Now, you're probably familiar with the rest of the scripture there, where he goes into like all of these metaphors of life, of like certain things that start and certain things that end. And as we look at like our planning, I think it's important for us to think about the end. You know, because when we plant something, eventually, you know, the time to plant tomatoes, for instance. If you're gardening, the time to plant tomatoes would probably be right after the first year, so by the end of January. So when you plant them then, they're going to start to flower in the spring, and then you get tomatoes in the spring, and sometimes people's tomatoes plants can last throughout the summer. Sister Anna just gave us some tomatoes the other week that were from her wild tomatoes. She's like, I don't remember planting this, but it ended up in my yard, and it's produced like all of these tomatoes, all like, and it's just like a surprise. But here's the thing, is that there's going to be a time when she has to uproot that. You know, and I was telling her, she's like, yeah, it's got these little tiny tomatoes and they're so good. I was like, yeah. I said, that's an indeterminate tomato. I said, I used to garden these. I said, but the thing that you will want to do is, if you're growing these in an area, they'll take over the entire area. So you're going to have to eventually take those out so they don't, you know, infiltrate everything. And that thing that's a blessing right now, eventually is going to be some work to get it out so that there can be room for something new, right? So there's a time for everything. There, you know, when we look at the cycle of children, there's a time when they're pulling up on things. There's a time when they can scoot and they can kind of walk with things. And then there's, you know, then we look at like the course of life when the kids are getting married and stuff. And we see like, wow, they went through all of those cycles. The other night, me and Pastor Kathy were blessed after outreach to be with Brother Robert and Sister Chanel. They had their brand new baby on Monday night. A beautiful little baby too. So they'll be bringing, you know, the baby to church. The couple in the church.
No, what's sex?
Male, little boy. Yeah, they had a little boy, but a beautiful baby. But I look at like being there at that time. I was like, wow. You know, it was such a blessing to be able to be there with them at that time. And I was saying, I said, this is one of my favorite times to be a pastor. Like sometimes I don't mind going to court with people, but a lot of times going to court with people is stressful. Like, if I have to go and visit somebody in jail, that's stressful. If I have to, if there's some sort of problem, it's stressful, but it's always good, like when there's a child that's being born. So there's a time, there's death of one thing, like I look at like Sister Chanel. The death is she's no longer pregnant no more. That baby is manifested, so she don't have to carry him in the stomach. She can carry him in a stroller or carry him in a carrier, but there was a time to be born, a time to die. So for every new cycle, there's an end to a cycle. As we end the cycle of 2019 here at the church, some things that we've evaluated and we're not going to do next year. Why are we not going to do the same thing that we did last year? Because things change. Sometimes, like that, there's a big need for something, or there's a big demand in one way, and okay, as long as there's a demand, we have to do this. But then now, if the demands change, what do we have to do? We have to uproot and say, okay, well, the energy that this was taking up here, now we put something different in there, and we can get something better to come. Or we can get something, so it's just better, but something that's more useful, something that helps the collective in a better way. Okay, so Genesis 3:19, the end of a cycle. By the sweat of your brow you will eat your bread until you return to the ground, because out of it is where you were taken, for dust you are, and dust you will return. Spoken to who? Adam. After what? He ate the apple. They said, well, now you're going to have to work for your food. I have given you a garden, but because you ate of the wrong thing, the thing I told you not to eat of, now you've got, some work that you got to do. You were taken from the dust of the earth, and you'll return to the dust of the earth. Isn't that the fate of all of us? So if we look at like that, we will return back to the dust from which we came. Think of this, like when we walk out of here, we think of like the dust on the ceiling fans, or the dust on the window seals, or the dust. We're going to return to dust. And when I think of that, and when I see like sometimes when people are cremated, and I'm doing their funeral, I see like, wow, their remains are right there. Their bodies were reduced to something that could fit in the small urn right here. And when I think of the planning, entering into the new year, particularly the new decade, when I think of myself as dust, it's fascinating, like that we all, that's what we break down to. That like our righteousness is as filthy rags before the Lord, but we just return back to dust. So when I think about that, you know why it makes it more exciting for me to plan and to make the plans I have? Is because the only thing that's going to last is the things that you plan for and that you set in as a legacy. Amen. There's people that are dead that are still influencing me. They're still influencing me from the grave. I look at like for honesty, truth, and integrity. My grandmother was that. Like I didn't see I saw my grandmother live in honesty, truth, and integrity. So I look at like how I run my business, how I try to live my life with honesty, truth, and integrity. She has been gone for a number of years, but what is left? Her house isn't here anymore. The car she used to drive isn't here no more. Her clothes, we don't have that anymore. But what do we have? We have the legacy of what her life meant, and now it can be carried on into the next generation. Think of this. If there is no planning, what does the legacy become? I want to make a lasting impression. I want something to last. So here's the thing. It's like, well, what was his final years like? Well, I don't know. He didn't really do much. No, if 2020 is my final year, I want my kids to be able to, wow, well, he was busy almost every day of this year working towards the plans, the goals, the dreams that he had. If it's in your life, well, at least she was working towards this, and this. If I have to leave my children without a parent, what am I installing in them that will last beyond my life here on this earth? So planning, it's kind of the sad part of planning, but it's the important part of it. That I write down my goals every day. Why? Because if there's nothing else that can be left of this day, that, you know, my wife could give to my kid, hey, look, if this was a note your dad left, he was supposed to complete this, this, and this. He was a man with a plan. He was a man who was on an agenda. He wasn't just living life and existing. He was living his life and was working towards something within life. They said Leonardo da Vinci. I was doing a little study of him. I don't know, anybody heard of Leonardo da Vinci, right? Most heard of him. Known as one of the brightest people that probably ever lived. But one of the things that he did, and I was looking at one of the practices of his life that was kind of like not a well-known fact until he died, but he journaled. He journaled everything. So because he journaled, a lot of his life was left for other people to be able to say, okay, well, this might be a plan to be able to have a successful life. Do you know how many hours of sleep that he got every day? It's a trick question. Because you have to study this out. He did, I think it's every 4 hours, he took a 20-minute nap. He just took a 20-minute nap every 4 hours, and he never just committed to sleep. Because he was always creating, he was painting, he was writing, he was, you know, he looked at his life and his time as so important, and he wanted to be a transcendent figure that wanted to be remembered. So he wrote his life out, but then also he felt so important of his calling that he only slept 20 minutes at a time every 4 hours. You think you can handle that, Pastor James?
No.
Pastor James works the graveyard shift. That's why I'm messing with it. I don't know if I could do that. Now, there was a guy on YouTube that tried it, and the way that he put it, he practically went crazy, because he was just like, man, he said, I just wanted to sleep so much that the 20 minutes just seemed like I was such a robbery. I wasn't getting enough. But then, you know, he said, but you know, if I really lived like this, I could see how this person could kind of live on the borderline of insanity and great levels of creativity. And that's what was needed in his life to get the creativity that he got from it. Okay, so planning with the end in mind. So planning with the end in mind, Zephaniah 3:16 and 17. In that day it will be said to Jerusalem, don't be afraid, O Zion. Do not let your lamp fall limp. The Lord your God is in your midst, a victorious warrior. He will exult over you with joy. He will be quiet. He will be quiet in his love. He will rejoice over you with shouts of joy. So do not let your lamp become limp. Do not let your lamp like the 10 virgins. Don't let your oil run out. Don't lose your inspiration. Don't lose your motivation. Don't let the things of this world drain you of your drive. You know, it's like sometimes I've visited people, but particularly when I visit people in mental facilities, I'm asked to go to them often, and I don't mind, and I actually look at like that's some of the purest ministry that I do, because in that time often people are left, no one wants to visit them, or no one can visit them. But when I go in and bring, you know, words of encouragement, I always see that there's many people, and it's like that they just feel like that their life is nothing, or like that they just feel hopeless, or that's the spirit, that's the feel that I get in the room. But you know, I look at like when we can see the encouragement that comes from the Word. Don't let your lamp go limp. Don't let your motivation die. You know, sometimes, you know, we're coming at the end of the year, and for some of you, it's been a long, you know, laborious year. You've been like one project after another project, working, but you still got to find time. This is why we plan. We plan to the end so that we don't lose our motivation, so we don't lose our inspiration, so we don't lose our drive to do what God has called us to do. A lot of unfinished projects go unfinished because people lose their drive with stuff. They're like, yeah, I had a plan to start this and finish this, but, you know, no one helped me anymore. Or no one, you know, I didn't get the support that I needed, right? I wasn't able to do this. But at the end of our life, are we going to leave behind a bunch of unfinished projects? Or are we going to leave behind some projects that have been finished and been completed, and other people can build on the project or the idea? Think about this, planning to the end. I tell people that get their real estate license, I teach a little seminar I've done before, like with new agents. I tell them like that, hey, you got to plan your business to the end. I said, well, what does that mean? I said, well, what do you plan to do with your real estate? Well, I plan to sell real estate. I plan to make a lot of money. Everyone has that goal. I said, but no, what do you plan to do with the actual business? Like, well, I don't know. After I'm done, I'll just be done. It's like, but you don't think that what you've done over the years has built up any value? Well, I didn't think about it. So you got to think about it like that. You got to look at like any business. You know how businesses are sold and they acquired whatever? Well, they had a plan and they said, okay, well, by the year this, or once we receive this level of profitability, we're going to sell and get out of that, and we'll take our money and go into something else. Or we'll diversify the investment into something else. So I look at like, I have a plan with what I want to do. I don't want to always sell real estate, but I want to take like some of the teachings that I've done, some of the ways I've been able to motivate, inspire people with information, and I've been making like, trying to put together like little videos and stuff like that, because even if I die tomorrow, that someone, my grandkid, great-grandkid, can click on their phone or whatever their device is then, it's like, hey, that was our great-grandpa, and he was talking about real estate, and he was saying all this stuff, and if I'm talking something that's futuristic and it's not, maybe well embraced right now, and it's something that's groundbreaking later, I will look like a genius. So all of us, we have to go out there and live as if this is it's our final days, and actually plan to the end, not just plan to, well, when I die, somebody else will take it over. Not necessarily. A lot of times dreams die, dreams end, and now your dream is in the hand of someone that didn't even know your vision or didn't even know why you started it. So I look at, that's another story, for like keeping your intellectual properties, to know that God, the same God that gave you inspiration to start, will give you inspiration and a reason to plan to the end. Okay, so here's what I want to do is, we're at the close now. So my final point is this, is I want you to create 3 goals, three things that I want you to make a commitment to. And these 3 things, I'm going to give you the characteristics of them. I want you to look at these 3 goals as 3 challenges that you will complete in 2020. That have to be done in 2020. Sometimes you say, well, I'll get around to that. Or maybe one day I'll do that. One day I'll get this done. One day I'm going to sit down, I'm going to go through the paperwork, and I'm just going to do this. But I really want you to manifest something from this. I don't want to just say, well, just set this goal, and if you no. I want you to make 3 goals. Hell or high water, I have to have them done. I can't go another year without doing this. I can't go another year. It has to be completed within this calendar year. It has to be completed within 2020. So I want you to look at it in this way. I want you to think of something that you can do with your family or with a family unit that you have. So it doesn't have to be an organic family. It could be with a brother or sister. It could be with someone in the church. It could be with friends. Something that you want to do, that you want to conquer, that you want to see. That could be an area of it of the organization of this. So that could be one part. The other part could be self-improvement. One thing I'm going to do to improve myself in 2020. I'm going to do it in 2020. And it's not going to be an if, and, or maybe. I'm going to do this. And then I want you to find something spiritual. I'm going to get through this, and I'm going to do this. Now, spiritual, I'm going to give you some direction on that. Spiritual, it could be to complete like a book of the Bible, reading something. It could be to read the whole Bible within a year. It could be to win someone to the Lord. It could be to actively participate in worship. It could be to say, you know what? In 2020, I'm going to give my ear while I'm driving all to spiritual development. So I'm going to listen to worship music 12 months out of the entire year. But to do something, to make these 3 goals, 3 things that have to be done. So I'm going to give you, as I prepared for this today, I put some things down that I said in 2018 that I had to do in 2019. So one of them, from 2017, no, excuse me, 2018 to 2019 that I had to do. One thing that we had to do with the family, or as a family, was, I'll just say there was a purchase that had to be made. Now we made this purchase, but I said, you know what, I have to do this in 2019. We can't go another year without doing this, so I'll say I was able to do that. Another one was in 2018, something I put on my list that said I have to do this in 2019. I have to. I'm not waiting another year to do it. Was the videos, the weekly videos online. That was one of the things that I said, now or never. But like I said, my brother told me, he said, you know, I know people that are doing videos like that, and I was just telling them, well, why are you? I was, oh, well, you know, I'm waiting I gotta get some lights, I gotta get this, But it started bugging me that I was procrastinating, and I was saying, I'd spoken something that I knew God told me, and God showed me through my brother that it could be manifest, but I tried to pull back from it to say, well, no, I don't have the equipment, whatever. But when I thought about how weak I sounded to him, I said, nah, 2019, I'm going to make it part of my routine. I'm going to record something every week. So I'm proud to say we're coming up on 52 weeks of the year. I've done every week. I've made a video, and it was difficult. It wasn't easy. Some weeks I didn't really feel like saying anything, but now I'm hitting my stride. Now I'm more comfortable with it. And if I wouldn't have challenged myself and not planned it out to the end, I would have still been thinking about it. I know me. I would have still been thinking about it. I would have been watching other people's videos and still gathering all this information, because I'm bad with that. Sometimes when I want to do something, I'll just gather a bunch of information, and the information will just sit. And I'll be stuck. I have all this information in my head, but no drive to be able to complete it. But when you plan to the end, when you say, hey, hell or high water, 2020, I'm going to do this or bust. I have to get this done. Other thing, what we did, what my goal was with the group last year or this year. So we have to complete our 501c3 applications. I said, hell or high water, I don't care how it has to get done. We as a group, we got to get this done. And I'll say this, that, I'm really proud of our board. We got it done. And it was just I know it was difficult through times of it. There was stuff we didn't know what to do. We didn't know, it's in process now. I mean, but I just look at that, if we wouldn't have, that goal would not have been set, hey, hell or high water, we get it done this year. We could have waited another 15 years. Just, we made it this year, so that's good enough. But what did we do? We said, no, we have to, this is the year that it has to be done. So what has to be done in your life this year? Stand with me, let's close out. The year that, 2020, it's a new decade now, y'all. Mm-hmm. What is it that you have to do? I remember in 2015, I was all gymmed out and I was man, I go to the gym, I'm not really seeing anything. But what I did in 2015, I said, you know what? I have to come up with a workout I can do at home every day. And I started doing it every day. And I look at man, I was looking at some of my goals I had written down. I was you know what? It's the end of 2019, and through a blood clot, through being sick, being traveling, whatever, I've stuck with this. How do I stick with it? Because in 2014, I said, you know what? I'm not going to rely on having to pay $30 every month to go to a stupid gym that I don't even go to all the time. I have to create a discipline within myself to where every day before I leave my house, I have to be responsible to make a workout for myself. I give glory to God for that. So I got other goals. I want to hear what your goals are. Next week, we're going to be doing, it's going to be our vision board week. So I'm going to be doing a vision board for our Monday video. We're going to be doing it for our Sunday morning 10 a.m. class. and we'll be doing it for next Wednesday. So what I'd like you to do is get a couple of pictures, something that inspires you, something that you can say, well, you know what? If I saw this every day, it would motivate me. It would remind me of my goal. It would remind me of what my mission is. So I want you to get a couple of pictures. I'd say anywhere, I'd say a minimum of 5. We're just going to put them on a little poster board. I want you to write some words up there, some some statements that when you see it every day, you're going to make these statements and you're going to manifest. It's worked for me, and I say this, that it didn't come all because. I learned this from somewhere, I learned it at the right time within my life. And I learned it at a time where where results were really important to me within my life. So I think that results can be important to all of us. We can live like 2020 as if it were our last year. Look how much more we would get done as if we lived 2020 as if it were our last. So, all right, well, today let's pray. Let's bow your heads. Father, in Jesus' name, thank you today, Lord, for the opportunity you have given for us, God, to come and hear this word that they were able to hear. God, I thank you for the encouragement that we were able to share with one another, God. I pray in Jesus' name that you allow us, God, that as we contemplate what this message means, to make our plans to the end, Lord. God, help us to think about living each day as if it were our last, and living in these very last days, God. Help us to think of what we did not accomplish so that we can set a goal to make it a priority to accomplish in 2020. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen and amen.